Hello and welcome back. I'm Rabbi Melissa Hoffman, and I'll be taking you through part 3 of our sustainable dining training. In part 1, you learned about the environmental and practical impacts of sustainable dining. And in this section, we're going to take a deeper look at the Jewish ethical framework that can guide our communities today, showing how core values have shaped our relationship to food for centuries and how they can inform real choices in our communal dining. In the course content that accompanies this video, you'll find examples of how these values connect to contemporary issues in today's food system. So let's talk about the values that give us an ethical frame for this work. You may already be familiar with values derived from biblical and rabbinic traditions, such as tzedek, justice for humans, animals, and our shared environment; bal tashchit, avoiding wasteful destruction of our ecosystems; tsa'ar ba'alei chayim, preventing animal suffering; and oshek, protecting our essential workers from exploitation. These teachings are not abstract ideals. They're practical tools for evaluating the food we purchase and the systems we support. Take bal tashchit, for example. Bal tashchit comes from a line in Deuteronomy where the Torah says you can't cut down fruit trees even in the middle of a war, which is a powerful way of saying that wastefulness is never okay, even in extreme circumstances. Our sages later expanded this idea to mean we shouldn't squander any resource because the world is entrusted to us and not ours to do with what we like. When we look at our food system today, especially how industrial animal foods are produced, this is especially relevant. As you learned in part 1, the production of animal protein is, by and large, far more resource intensive than the production of plant-based foods. Many Jewish institutions I've spoken with often focus on food waste downstream, what gets left over after people eat. And that is a real issue that we should address. But if we're concerned about waste, the most impactful place to intervene is actually upstream, supporting food systems that are far less wasteful to begin with. Industrial animal agriculture converts enormous amounts of plant, water, and land resources into relatively small amounts of food for humans, making it one of the most wasteful food systems in existence. In practice, the simplest way for us to reduce demand for this industry and reduce our own waste footprint is by shifting our norms towards more plant-based foods. Being truthful about the food system is also part of bringing Torah to life. Today, virtually all animal products in grocery stores and even most kosher butcher shops come from the same industrial factory farms that produce 99% of meat, dairy, poultry, and fish in the United States. Kosher certification tells us something important about ritual process, but it does not guarantee humane treatment, environmental stewardship, or safe labor conditions. We know that kosher should mean better, but until it does, the most sustainable and values-aligned choices we can make will often involve limiting or avoiding the majority of kosher beef, dairy, poultry, and fish currently available. Luckily, this concern for what is fit and appropriate to eat is at the heart of what it means to be kosher. Kashrut isn't just about rules. It's about setting boundaries that guide us towards foods that align with our values. When we set those boundaries thoughtfully, we open up a world of possibility. New plant-forward versions of beloved dishes, innovative recipes, and culturally meaningful foods that honor the diversity of our Jewish communities. In this way, making values-aligned choices can expand the flavors, experiences, and creativity at our tables. Let's shift now from theory to practice. How can these ideas show up in the meals that we serve? In this next section, we'll look at menu design, which is one of the most powerful tools for nudging diners toward more sustainable choices. In the exercises ahead, we'll be referencing the nudge and default strategies that you were taught in part 2. So here's our first sample menu. Take a few seconds and identify 3 things you would change based on what you've learned so far. Here are a few of the opportunities for improvement. The plant-based option is separated out and placed at the very bottom instead of integrated with the rest of the menu. Another thing is the ratio of animal-based to plant-based dishes is still high. We have the first 2 options, which are animal-based, and then there is an unknown entree, which makes it difficult to choose. There are also no tasty titles to entice diners. And finally, there's no signage or symbols to indicate allergens or whether a dish is fully plant-based. Now let's look at this stronger example. See if you can spot at least 3 features that nudge diners toward more sustainable choices. Here's what this menu does well. The default offering is plant-based with the option to add meat. At the very bottom of the menu, it says beef can be added to the brisket option upon request. The dishes also use tasty, descriptive titles that signal abundance, flavor, and satisfaction. And there's a clear symbol key helping diners identify which dishes are fully plant-based with the little leaf you see to the side. Here is another example of a Shabbat dinner menu where nothing is really specified as to what is plant-based. There are options listed that are seemingly mostly animal-based or contain animal products. But another example here has an indicator for dishes that are fully plant-based, which comprises most of the menu. Another strategy you see here that you learned in part 2 of our course is climate-friendly ratios. There is a 2-to-1 ratio of dishes that are plant-based to a dish that is animal-based. Now let's turn to events that use registration to inform their dining plan. Whether it's a conference, a holiday program, or meal signups at a school or camp, structuring registration smartly can be a powerful tool in shifting communal food culture. Take a look at this registration form and see how this simple model creates a plant-forward default, allowing registrants to check a box only if they prefer to add animal products. More detailed versions are possible, of course, but even this approach helps event organizers plan more accurately for the amount of meat and dairy they will serve. And that in turn can reduce waste, lower costs, and cut the environmental impact of every meal that's served. Over here in the gray box, you'll see how it says your registration fee includes a Parev Shabbat dinner meal, and if you would like to add meat to your meal, please indicate your preference below. So a person filling out this form would simply check a box to indicate that they would like to add meat to their meal. Here is another sample event registration form where things are a little more specific. The entree options are given, and one of them contains soy, and which is indicated as an allergen and is also indicated as fully plant-based. The second option is lasagna, which includes dairy and wheat, both allergens and indicating that there are animal products in it. So we see here how it's possible to list the plant-based option first, which is a kind of choice architecture to nudge diners towards picking that option. There's also an opportunity for registrants to write in any allergies and restrictions that may not be reflected in that part of the form. For communities that serve food regularly or influence those who do, We now have abundant evidence that shifting what we serve is the single most impactful way to reduce water use, conserve land, and cut emissions. In doing so, we also shift support away from industrial animal agriculture, which routinely violates the core Jewish values we talked about earlier. The exciting news is that Jewish institutions are already leading the way. Whether it's schools, synagogues, or other Jewish nonprofits, we're seeing a real desire to align the principles we hold dear with the way we nourish ourselves in our places of learning and worship, and in times of comfort and celebration. We've had the pleasure of working with organizations like Ohavei Tzion Synagogue, which adopted nudge and default strategies to replace animal products in their communal meals, introducing hearty, delicious new dishes, and even doing so at a cost savings. These changes weren't just values aligned, they were practical, joyful, and welcomed by the community. I hope this demonstration has sparked new ideas for how your community can implement sustainable dining strategies that reflect your values. As a next step, we've laid out 3 simple things you can do in the written material that accompanies this video. And if you decide to work with us directly at CJFE, we can help clarify your goals, navigate practical changes, and when the time is right, formalize a dining policy that reflects your community's values. And whether you're just beginning your journey or are already proud of a commitment you have, we encourage you to share and celebrate it, internally and publicly, so that your values can guide and inspire those beyond your circle. In our Jewish communities, our sacred teachings only come alive when we put them into action. As Rabbi Shimon teaches in this section from Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Lo hamidrash hu ha'ikar, ela hama'aseh. Study is not the essence, the deed is. And where else should our values shine most brightly and be embodied most clearly than in our own communities? We invite you to help make it so and make it delicious. To get in touch with us about working together and getting access to more resources, you can visit our website at jewishfoodethics.org, contact us directly via email, and stay connected by following us on our social channels. I want to thank you for joining us in this course, and B'tei Avon. We hope our resources inspire an appetite for new ideas, new choices, and building a more sustainable community together.